Alright guys, so today we're going to be doing something a bit different. This process took me several hours, so I'm just going to have the footage sped up in the background and comment on it when necessary. Now of course, animation is the main focus of this channel, but sometimes I like to do something a bit less stressful and more relaxing. Stop motion can be very exhausting, so something else I enjoy is graphic design. And something I've wanted to do for a long time is make action figure versions of things like game covers, posters, that kind of stuff. This still matches the theme of this channel, which is making action figure versions of things, so perhaps some of you all will enjoy this kind of stuff as well. This may be something very well suited to Instagram, but I honestly hate posting on Instagram, and I like making videos more than just posting images, so here we go. As you can see, the first project we have here is the Legends of Wrestling game cover from 2001. This is a game I played in my childhood, but I actually played Legends of Wrestling 2 more. The things I enjoy most about the first game are the cover and the intro. The intro would obviously be stop motion, but I'd need like almost 30 more figures to make it, so don't expect that anytime soon. Anyways, let's talk about the cover. The shade of blue on the reference image here is going to be different from the blue I end up using. Online, different images have different shades of blue, but when I was growing up, I remember the game I had having this very light, vibrant blue, so that's the kind of blue I'll end up using. Now on to the actual process. So the first thing I did was make a black background in GIMP, scaled it to match the cover dimensions. Then I got all the PNG elements like the T for Teen, the Acclaim logo, the PS2 graphics, and the metallic backgrounds. After that, I got images for all the figures I don't own. First we have Terry Funk. The closest figure I could think of is his Coliseum collection figure. I did own this at one point, but not anymore. I think it's a close enough match, and this image is actually in a very similar pose. Next we have Jimmy Snuka. Now, Mattel only made 2 Jimmy Snuka figures, neither of which I own, and neither of them have his headband, so I decided to use a Jax head sculpt. I couldn't find any images of the Jax figure in a similar pose to how he looks on the cover, so I decided to just crop the head sculpt and add my own body later to create the visual illusion that it's one figure. Jimmy Hart was tricky. I actually found a promotional image of his Legends 21 figure in pretty much the exact same pose, but he was turned the opposite direction. I decided to just flip the image and call it a day. I tried removing the backwards words, but that was more stress than I was willing to keep undergoing, so it's an imperfection I'll leave alone. It's not very noticeable in my opinion, and this is supposed to be a relaxing project, so that's that. The Road Warriors were pretty simple. These are the RSC unsanctioned Road Warriors figures, and the poses are almost perfect, so I was pretty content with them. As for the figures themselves, I've thought about getting them, mainly because they're in the Legends of Wrestling intro, but I'm a bit torn about them. I'd say with the shoulder pads on, they look amazing from the waist up, but from the waist down, there are some problems. For example, there's a huge gap between the legs and the waist piece, almost as if they're drop-down hips, but they're not drop-down, that's just how they look. It's a bit odd. Also, the waist piece itself looks basically the same from both sides. There's no anatomical definition to distinguish the front of the figure from the back of the figure. It's just a flat, generic piece. Now, the problems continue if we remove the shoulder pads. First, in terms of size, Animal and Hawk look almost identical. In real life, Animal was much larger than Hawk. The final issue is the fact that their chests look like they have chest implants. The sculpting isn't very good and doesn't look very natural. And as a bonus critique, Animal doesn't have his rat tail hairstyle. Tom from Ringside said this was to avoid copyright issues, but their bell-to-bell Animal has a rat tail, so that excuse doesn't completely cut it for me. I do have to say though, these are Ringside's first Mattel-style figures, so we have to cut them some degree of slack, I guess. You guys already know, I'm no big fan of Ringside due to their greedy pricing practices, but we should be somewhat lenient in this critique due to them being new to this kind of product. If they make a Sabu though, there's pretty much a guarantee I'll get it, unless the price is absolutely absurd due to tariffs or something. Ringside, if you make a Sabu, gold pants, with a green pants variant, cloth headpiece, and fabric pants. Thanks. I want the green pants because that's what he's wearing in the Legends of Wrestling intro, and the gold pants I want just because I like the look of them. Anyways, that's enough about the unsanctioned figures. Once I completed editing all the figures I don't own, it was time to take some photographs of the figures I do own, namely Rob Van Dam, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Jerry Lawler, and the Ultimate Warrior's body for Jimmy Snuka. For this step, I'll be using Eagle Animation since it has a lot of settings options and will make the process smoother. So I've already taken the image for Rob Van Dam, and now we're on to Bret Hart. For Rob Van Dam, I just used the Monday Night War Elite as it's very similar to one of the attires he has in this game. In fact, I only got that figure because it looks almost identical to how he looks in the intro. As for Bret Hart, I have 3 Ultimate Edition figures, but none of them have those glasses he has on the cover. I believe he usually wore those kinds of glasses in 1997 and WCW. A WCW Elite Bret Hart figure would probably be the best way to get them, but I don't have one, so I'll be using his more well-known visor style glasses. This is the Monday Night War Ultimate Edition with one of the greatest hits head sculpts and glasses. The pose is pretty simple. Next we have Hulk Hogan. I have 2 Hulk Hogan Ultimate Edition figures in the yellow trunks. This one is the WrestleMania 3 Greatest Hits version. Neither of them have a head sculpt where he's squinting like he's on the cover, so I'll have to Photoshop that later. Apart from that though, the pose was a bit tricky because the figure isn't able to look up as much as he does on the cover due to the hair being solid plastic and limiting the articulation. Overall, I tried to get the closest I could. I ended up retaking the first image because I wanted more light to shine on him, and he was backing my light previously. I'll just have to flip the image when I start editing it. After Hogan was Jimmy Snuka's body. This is just the WrestleMania 7 Ultimate Edition Ultimate Warrior figure without the accessories. This pose was a bit tricky as well, but I think I got it pretty close. Finally, we have Jerry Lawler. This is the Elite 82 figure with the Survivor Series Elite head sculpt. I changed the head sculpt because his hair looks a bit shorter on the cover. As for the title, I used the one from the AEW Owen Hart figure, which I believe is from Stampede Wrestling. I chose this one because I didn't want to use a recognizable title, and this one looks more like a generic territory title, which I assume is what Jerry Lawler is holding on the cover. Now it's time to go back to GIMP for the final edits. I removed most of the backgrounds in GIMP, but for Hulk Hogan I used Adobe Premiere Pro. The first thing I did was edit Rob Van Dam and Bret Hart. Next was Hogan, the centerpiece. At first, I tried to edit his eyes completely manually, but it ended up looking like he was sleeping rather than squinting. So I decided to Photoshop his mouth and eyes from a promotional image for the Target Legends Ultimate Edition, which is supposed to be released on April 27th. This was a bit challenging, but I like the final result. After Hogan was Jimmy Snuka, all I had to do was make it look like the Ultimate Warrior's body was Jimmy Snuka's body, so that was simple. Finally, I edited Jerry Lawler to complete the cover. So here's the final result. I really like this one. This is really cool to me. Imagine if you could buy this game, but instead of 3D models, it was action figures. That would be pretty cool. If I do get to animate the intro someday, then perhaps we'll see a little bit of what that would look like. As always, thanks for watching, and feel free to comment what other game covers or posters you'd like to see transformed into action figure form. Some things I have in mind are the Budokai 3 cover and the SmackDown vs. Raw cover, so one of those might be next. Bye for now.